Nick Thacker is an action-adventure thriller novelist who writes the types of books he likes to read. That means you won't find anything boring, slow, or sappy in his stories. Nick was born in Connecticut, grew up in Texas, and lives in Colorado with his wife, 2 children, 3 dogs, and a tortoise. He loves snow, drinking whiskey by the fireplace while it's snowing, and writing books by candlelight while a thick layer of snow piles up outside. So, Nick, I'm seeing a pattern here. Are you a fan of snow, I take it?
I'm a fan of snow, mostly because it's an easy justification for drinking whiskey by a fireplace.
You know, you're a writer, obviously. But am I correct in thinking that you didn't start out as a writer, but rather as a student of music?
That's right. Yeah, I still actually hate writing. I think that what is the joke? We don't like to write. We like to have written,
Yes.
which
Yep,
I think everyone is
exactly.
probably agree with with that. But I enjoy it though. But no, I didn't start writing until, gosh, probably about 6 or 7 years ago now. I mean, I'm talking ever. Like I hated writing in school. I didn't want to write anything growing up. I loved to read, and so naturally, when I decided to write my first book, I wrote what I knew, and that was the kind of stuff that I read. And so the book came out. It was a gift from my father, so it never was supposed to be anything anyone else read. Long story short, someone picked it up on a blog I had. I was kind of writing about the process and offered to edit the thing and turn it into a book, and the rest is history. I kept going.
So it turned your attention to writing away from music. What was the catalyst for that?
Well, like I said, reading was something I always had done. And the year that I started writing my first book, which it was called The Golden Crystal. It's now The Atlantis Stone, just the same title. My granddad passed away that year, and he and my father, his son, were really, all three of us were into reading. We would share novels and stories, things like that, just pass books back and forth. And so I thought for Christmas that year it would be kind of a neat gift to give my dad a book that I wrote. Because I figured, hell, why not? I mean, how hard can it be, right? I knew nothing about it, and
And they laughed and laughed.
yeah, and it took. I think it was the next. I can't remember if it. I think it took well over years. I think it was the next Christmas that I did finally give it to him. But I mean, it was a piece of crap. It was just. It looked great. It was all bound and print on demand and all
Yeah.
that. But gosh, the story had no flow. I mean, the characters were all the same. It was all me. I was every character pretty much.
Right, yeah.
Um, but what I learned, and this is kind of a tangent, but what I learned about myself is that not only do I like jumping headfirst into stuff, but I tend to do it in a way. I like to be naive. I like to be ignorant of not forever, but going into something new.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna start making beer, I want to just start making beer before I understand how hard it is to make beer that tastes good. Because then it'll scare me away. If I knew how hard it was to write a stupid book, I wouldn't have written a stupid book. So
Right. So what prompted you to continue, I guess, from that point?
yeah, no, great question. Well, my dad loved it, but he was supposed to. He's contractually obligated to like what I do,
Yeah.
and so when I got it edited, actually a friend of mine who's now co-writing with me, MP McDougal is his pin name.
Mhm.
He reached out and said, "I want to edit this book," and when he came back, he said, "Okay, so it's fixed mostly, but the story was really good. I really enjoyed the story." And so I said, "Okay, great." Well, what happened was, as I was writing that book, I had all these other ideas that didn't fit in the book. I think what happened was I never intended to write a second or third book, so all my good ideas I thought I had to cram into this one book. So it's this huge, sweeping, epic, story of proportions that I couldn't quite get a hold of. But all these other ideas that finally I decided couldn't fit in there became the second book and then the third book. And by the time I was writing the third book, I started to kind of see a trend, like, hey, if I start writing a little bit more often and look at this from a marketing perspective, it might actually make make some sales. And that was besides. So I graduated with a degree in music, but marketing was my first job out of college, and it's always been something that I've had a passion for. And so I think that's sort of really the story of how I became a writer. Was I approached it from a marketer's perspective rather than as from a writer's perspective. I still don't think I have great stories to tell. I think it's fun, but people keep buying it, I'll keep doing it. But I think I'm coming at it from, I like a product, I like the business side of it, just as much.
Yes, well, you're obviously doing something right, and I think that you have a leg up on most writers when you talk about your marketing background, because most of the writers I know, let's just say they're not born business people, and it's something that they have to learn. And most of them that I've talked to find that very, very difficult, because us as writers, when we write or finish a book, we think the job is done, but in reality, it's just beginning.
Exactly.
At least as an indie author, in particular, that's when the hard work often
It really does.
begins.
Yeah, absolutely. You're exactly right. I think most writers, and this is what people always are wondering to self-publish or go traditional, and it's not really a decision, first of all, because one of them is kind of a crapshoot, and the other one is if you don't do anything, the book's going to just flounder in obscurity, right?
Yeah.
But I think the big difference is how much of a business do you want to run? If you just want to write a book, then, man, you need to find an agent, figure out how to get your foot in the door with the publisher, and let them do all that stuff. But if you're like me and you like a little bit of the control and don't mind doing the taxes at the end of the year and paying people and all that, then I like that. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me. I'd always had the entrepreneurship bug, and this is a perfect way to scratch that itch, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then you talk about control, and I will admit that I'm something of a control freak when it comes to these things. So this is sort of tailor-made. Indie writing, publishing is sort of tailor-made for me. I dipped my toe into traditional publishing back in the day, and had a book accepted, and they sent me the cover that they did for it, and it was just positively horrible. It was so bad, I couldn't even market it. Like, I couldn't go out in public and then this is my book.
Didn't want your name on it, right?
And at that point, what is the point? You may as well not have done it. And so, I don't know. It gives you a lot more freedom. And then in today's publishing world, when the gatekeepers have kind of been pushed aside a little bit and people have a lot more options, it makes more sense. 10, 15 years ago, what maybe wasn't as realistic, but now you certainly can make a go of it.
Absolutely. So what did you end up doing with that book? Did you do it yourself, or did you just go through with it for?
No, they kept it. Yeah. So I mean, that's the other danger, particularly as naive as I was. Sure, I'll sign anything. It's probably So it was just a stupid thing.
Again, and that's sort of what I was talking about. The naivety is great. I think at the beginning, because it gets you to do something. It gets you to take action. I'm talking to myself here, really. I wouldn't do anything if I felt like I had to sit down and research every single thing about it, because it would, first of all, I'd never be done researching, and if I did feel like I had a handle on it, I'd be too scared to go forward with it.
Right.
And so I think the first time I do something in a particular, here's an example. You told me it was about games. This podcast, so I made a game. Here's my board
nice.
game.
That's awesome.
I don't know anything about making board games. The game sucks. It's not actually any fun to play. But that's just because I keep losing. I've never won the game. Everybody I play beats me. That's probably why I don't like it.
You invite people over, show them the game. You want to play it? And you're like, no.
No, I'm an opposite. But doing that, it was really eye-opening, because there's so much about it. And now I went into it thinking, okay, I have a pretty good idea of what this is going to be like. I think I can get this done. In some ways, it's a lot like making a book. You got a product, you got these, everything's got to fit together. There's a plot, and then you do it, and you realize, God, this is really hard work. I don't think I would have done it if I did. But now I got to see it through, because I want to finish the job. Anyway, so going back to your point, I think being naive, you make stupid mistakes, but hopefully you only make them once.
Yeah.
But there's no other way to learn. You got to make that mistake, and that way you can live to tell about it.
Right. Unless you're like me, just really creative about your mistakes, you just keep up making up new ones.
They're just different. You're iterative enough that you think they're not mistakes, but oh shit, it's the same thing I did last time. Absolutely.
So you and I write in pretty similar genres. What do you think makes, or I should ask, why do you write in that genre? What makes it special to you?
Well, man, that's a really good question. Again, going back to what I said about why I started writing, that's the kind of stuff that I've always read.
Yeah.
But I think the reason, I've had to think about this a lot over the years, like why am I not drawn to fantasy or sci-fi as much? And the reason, I think, is just I'm just a sucker for really fast-paced plot. I want to be intelligently strung along, I guess. I want to be solving the mystery just faster than the main character or characters.
Mm-hmm.
as I've gotten older, I think when I had kids, I started shifting a little bit toward more character development. I don't know why, but that's about when it happened, was when I had a kid. I was like, oh, I care about people now.
Well, yeah. Well, you become an amateur psychologist
Yeah, I think
overnight.
that's
So
I look at my kid. I'm like, why are you like that? Oh, wait.
Right.
You're okay. Never mind. Why are you so angry all the time? So, characters are a bigger part of it now. But for me, I always was sucked in by a fast-paced plot. Give it a little bit of science, something that's plausible. And my genre, as like yours, is just it's today. It's not really, it's not some other world or planet or history in someplace in time.
Right.
It's now, and so it's what technology do we have now that's maybe prototype type stuff, but the bad guys are using it for something super evil, and the good guys got to go find them and figure out what it is. I love that. I just think it's the popular science kind of thing. That's what draws me in. So the first book actually that I remember the day I read it. I was in high school. I think I just graduated from high school. Grabbed it off my dad's nightstand, but it was the Da Vinci Code. And people say what they will about his writing style. The plot and just the puzzle that he puts together, I think, is brilliant, and I loved it. It was nonstop. I couldn't put it down. Couldn't at the time. I didn't know who Robert Langdon was. I couldn't tell you what his name was or what he looked like or anything, because I didn't care about the character.
Yeah.
For me, it was just this story was so well done that was actually what pulled me in the direction of finding that genre. I sort of rediscovered what I like to read. Read that book.
That's interesting. You mentioned Dan Brown's writing style, and people have said less than flattering things about it. But I was talking with another writer, and I'm trying to remember who it was. Gosh darn. Anyway, talk about there are books that have done really well, and sometimes writers are really good about poo-pooing stuff that's doing really well a lot of times, because we have to explain why ours aren't doing as well as that. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is no matter how crappy we may think something is, if it's that popular, it's fulfilling some sort of need.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in that sense, it's valuable.
Absolutely.
So
true. I had a big rant about literature. I did a live stream with some of my co-writers a little while back.
Neat.
Accidentally got on the topic of literature, which I say I hate, and I don't. But the truth is, I'm comparing it to a book I like to read, which is plot thick, real heavy, fast-paced action, and rarely does literature have that.
Yeah.
Rarely is Heart of Darkness is just nothing happens. It's just so dull. But that's not what the book is. That's not the point.
Right.
This book is brilliant for completely different reasons. I just don't like that kind of stuff, And I think that's what 50 Shades of Grey comes out. Well, she's a terrible writer. Yeah, she is. Fine, whatever. But go do what she's doing, because she did something right, and she's making a lot more money than you.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, how did publishing that first book change your process of writing going forward, do you think?
Oh, that's good. I remember in the middle, I got to the muddy middle. I was right about 50%, and I just threw my hands up and said, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. This is terrible. I've written all these people into corners. I don't know how to write them out. So I took a break for a few months. I didn't write anything, and I just read books on craft. And I found my all-time favorite one, for nostalgia's sake, but also it is a really good book just in general, was Dwight Swain, Techniques of the Selling Writer. He's passed away since then, but I still have that book, and I read it probably once every year just to flip through. But it just gave me it was a formula. And I know that's a bad word in writer world, but I didn't have anything to go off of. I didn't have a framework, blueprint, whatever you want to call it. And he gave me that and just said, do this. And so I was like, oh, okay. So all of a sudden it became a paint by numbers, approach. Like, here's generally what you need to do, except you come up with the story and the main sort of idea. And did that, and it worked really well. And so I remember loving that process, and that's what changed the second half of the book. I went back, redid it, and tightened it up a little bit. It was still, like I said, it still sucked because I had no experience actually doing it, but Mike fixed it and edited it and all that. But the second book, I remember having so much fun just outlining the thing, because then I could see, without having wasted 10,000 words, oh, that's not going to work. Okay, he's going to be in a submarine, but the submarine, blew up like the last scene, so he's dead. I got to get him out of the submarine somehow, right? So I remember doing that with the outline, and I really enjoyed. That's when I knew I was a plotter rather than a pantser. I still am to this day. I've changed how I outline, but I love the approach that outlining leads me down, or takes me on, I guess. whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, formulas are still around because they work and they're there
Sure.
for a reason. I actually don't have a problem with them. I mean, really, you could put most books into some sort of formula. I mean, there are professors who do that for a living. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So it is. It's easy to sit around. I don't know. I wish that, like, I love the writing community and writers, and I've been in it for many years now. But I wish we could dispense with some of this kind of fake snobbery, you know?
Yes.
I don't think it serves anybody well. And, there was a time I took a little bit of flack when I started writing more genre fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I love genre fiction. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It's a hell of a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And it's a hell of a lot of fun to read. So,
and it makes a hell of a lot of money if you do it well, you know. And there's
and therein lies the issue. So.
well, right. I mean, we've seen that there's a spectrum, right? I mean, you look at Hollywood and the crap that they're pumping out is so formulaic that it just lacks any depth.
Yeah.
But then, you know, they're coming out with the same, you know, comedy or whatever every 3 months, but it works because it's lining up with the formula that they know works. And you don't go see that comedy because you want it to be the most deep, nuanced, complex character development. You want it's because there's a hot girl A and hot guy B, and you know, and they are going to somehow fall in love.
Yeah.
That's why you go.
Exactly.
That's why people pick up my book. I'd never promised anyone from day. Actually, I got in trouble. Not in trouble, but somebody called me out and called my books airplane books once, and I was like, "Hey, I love that. That's exactly what I'm trying to write. That is absolutely 100%." That's you look at that book. Oh, let's go. I'm gonna get on an airplane. I need something to read. I want them to pick up my book because I will entertain you for the 2 or 3 hours. After that, you're on your own.
Right.
You know, I'm not trying to entertain you for the next. You know, it's your eight different book club meetings for the next 3 Sundays. Like, just read the book, enjoy it, put it down. Like I don't care. You know. So I've always had an issue with that too. So I like formulas because they help me get through my book.
Yeah.
But I certainly hope it doesn't come across formulaic. I don't want to just, you know, change the name of the villain and write the same obviously, but
right.
Yeah, no, we're on the same page. I think most people get that too. I think it just feels that's what it is. It feels like you're cheating or feels like you're selling out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'll sell out. You can pay my mortgage and let me live in Hawaii half the year. I'll do more of that.
Well, the thing is that people always say they want something different, but if you give them something too different, then they're like, I don't like it. I don't understand it. Take it away.
Exactly.
You know, so you can't win. You can't win.
You can't win. So you don't try to win. Do what you want to do.
Absolutely. Yep. Figure out where you're going and keep your eye on the ball. So if you've written both standalone books but you also have some series going, which do you find easier to write, standalones or series books?
Oh, that's a big question. I'm going to answer it in a weird way. Standalones are way harder to write because I actually have to write those. Series books, so far, they've all just written them for me. Now, let me clarify that because before I get in trouble from people thinking I'm just hiring ghostwriters. So when I bring a co-writer on, like Dave Behrens, you had him on the show a few weeks ago.
Great guy.
Good dude, and I've always wanted to work with him on something. And so I don't know who pitched whom or whatever, but you know, I sucked him into my universe and was like, write a Harvey Bennett type thing, and he was like, well, I don't want to do that because your book sucks. So he didn't say that. I'm just kidding. He wanted to write.
Doesn't sound like Dave at all.
I always give him a hard time about that. So I'm glad I was able to do it publicly. But he came up with a completely different character named Josephine Bennett. It was like a kid niece or cousin of Harvey Bennett, my main character. I told him the same thing I told everybody. Like, I've never done this co-writing thing before. I don't have any intention of running a ghostwriting, sweatshop. I want to split this 50-50, work, money, everything, just down the middle. Everything's up for negotiation. How do you want to do this? And he said, just like most of the other ones, let's work on an outline together, and then I'll take a crack at the first draft, and then we can just go back and forth after that. That was easier to them than doing chapter by chapter, which I did with Kevin Tumlinson. Mm-hmm. That can totally work, but it has to be a relationship that already works, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
So some of these unknowns, just like I like David, but I've never written with him, and we've never met in person. I wouldn't want to do a chapter by chapter because I don't know how much. Hey, how far can I go telling him this part sucks or this part's really good?
Right.
Because that needs to happen. And so it's a lot easier when they hand me a draft of something, because then I can go through and essentially act like an editor who's also allowed to beef up, change, chop this or that. And I guess my theory is by the time they get it back, they don't really remember what it was looking like before, so they're not mad at me for changing everything.
It's better than I remembered writing it. Excellent.
So for the writing process itself, that's easier for me. But from the management perspective of like running the business, I mean, I'm on the phone with the IRS every day. I've been getting audited for like a year and a half. Not about co-writing stuff, but just dealing with that is my full-time job now.
Yeah.
Taxes, generating 1099, especially this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
Generating the 1099s, the W-2s for, I pay unemployment on myself. That way I can fire myself, I guess, and collect unemployment. I don't know, whatever. But
I've been really falling down on the job lately. Bad me.
I'm thinking about just firing myself every other month just so I can keep collecting unemployment. I don't know.
Teach myself a lesson.
There's some lesson about how I feel about government in there somewhere that I don't think we have time to unpack. But that's what I started with this, and I say it a little tongue in cheek because I really do enjoy the business of it. I really love saying Turtle Shell Press employs multiple people. We all produce entertainment, and we have these series going on. But gosh, I thought I would be doing more writing. I'm just not doing more writing, as much writing as I thought I would.
Do you miss it?
So kind of no, I don't, because there's still I would miss the work if I wasn't doing any work.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I've never thought of myself as a writer first and foremost. I didn't come into this going, I'm a writer, I have to write. It was always like, hey, I have the story to tell, and I think I should probably do it myself instead of trying to find someone else. So for that reason, I started writing. But man, when I feel like I'm on vacation and I don't have any work to do, that's when I get a little depressed. But I can come back and I can do, check in with the Slack group and, do some accounting, bookkeeping, whatever, the business stuff. I love that stuff. I really do. If I didn't write at all, I would miss it.
Yeah. But
I'm just not writing as much as I thought I was. I'm still working on my standalone stuff. The Mason-Dixon series is still exclusively mine. I'm actually talking to Dave about doing something with him, with Mason. But things like that. I'm still writing. It's just not. I thought it would be adding to my writing workload, but I really am not. It's a long answer to that. But.
No, it was a good answer. Very good. So coming off of that, what advice would you have perhaps for those looking to get into the writing field? So if you think back prior to all this multifaceted business you have going now, when you were first getting into it, what are a couple things that you wish you would have known?
I would tell myself there's no point in looking anywhere else besides Amazon. I am by far an Amazon shill. I think they do some pretty crappy stuff, and I'm pretty pissed with them most days. But it's pretty sad that the rest of the book selling world has no idea how to sell books.
Yeah.
But it's pretty evident that that's the case. Now, of course there's people who are making it big, wide. People killing it on Kobo or Apple Books and all that. But come on, like the vast majority of writers who are going to get started are just going to save so much time and energy and gray hairs just going through Amazon and trying to make a dent there. Because if they can do it there, then they can do it live. They can do it wide.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I
was talking with Dave Chesson, and we were talking about how essentially Amazon is just a giant search engine designed to sell things. And they've gotten really, really good at it.
They have.
And if you can harness that for your own purposes, why would you not?
Exactly, because what the thing is, it's machine learning. It's a giant algorithm. I'm 100% sure that it's some giant robot sitting in like a factory somewhere, eyes and everything, and he's just like grabbing books. There's no other plausible explanation for how that works. It has to be that. But that robot is also teaching me how to sell my books, right? Because as soon as I do something that works, Amazon awards me for that by giving me more impressions or more clicks on ads or a better rank. And so I'm like, okay, well, that cover was better than the cover I just had, or that description was better than the one I just had. And we iterate, and pretty soon we have a pretty solid sales page or sales material on their sales page. We've got a good cover that converts. We got copy that converts. Our keywords are solid. Our categories are right, and we can take that and go to another platform and set it up the same way. That's my theory anyway. Now, I've never done that, but that's what I imagine. You know, if you can sell on Amazon, there's so many more people on Amazon than anywhere else. If you can figure out how to sell on Amazon, you should be fine everywhere else. But it's so much easier than saying I'm going to be wide, and okay, there's a typo in the book. Let me upload it to 12 different stores now, or even upload it, once here and then once on Amazon. It's just easier.
Yeah.
I love Drafted Digital. Those guys are awesome. I love Kevin. I love Dan. I mean, every single one of them is great. But I'm just like, guys, I can't do it. I'm too scared, I think. So I would tell myself that. I would also tell myself to really pay attention to the genre. This is all Chris Fox, right? This is Right to Market 101. I wish that book had existed, because that's it. That's what it is. You know, and everyone's like, oh, Right to Market. Well, not everyone, but people who don't like it are, oh, Right to Market is, well, my book's different. It's a special little baby. Yeah, sure it is. He's ugly, though, so
right.
Go make it look like the rest of our babies, and you can sell it.
Okay, well, nobody's going to buy your baby.
No one's going to buy your baby.
Yeah.
You want to sell. Why would you want to raise your baby? You can sell that thing.
Wholeheartedly agree, and I'm the father of twins, so please.
Oh, man, yeah, one up on me. I've just got 2 little girls.
Yeah, well, with twins, always figure out, if something happens to one, you have a spare.
That's right. Yeah. I always tell my wife, hey, kids are free to make, so.
Yeah, can I say that without getting on the air, without getting picked up by social services? I don't know. So, kidding, I'm kidding.
That's right.
So, coming full circle back to your music, you have something, talking about this multifaceted empire you've been constructing. You have something that's, I think, is quite extraordinary, called Sonata and Scribe. Is that still going?
Oh, absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. It's actually probably the most exciting project that I'd ever launched, because it's 100%. It's just me. It's 100% what I've always wanted to do. I got a degree in music composition from Texas State. I'd always wanted to be a film score composer. I'm like a super fan of John Williams, Hans Zimmer, these guys that are killing it in the movie industry. And I just always wanted to be that guy. And I think, academia broke me of that. I started realizing that it's a lot more about who you know, and you have to have the technique, but it's a lot more about who you're rubbing shoulders with, or whatever, bumping, whatever the term is. And you got to move to Hollywood and do all this stuff.
In bed with, I think.
In bed, yeah, I was gonna say bumping up, but that's a very different thing. We'll say bumping shoulders for now.
There you go.
But I wasn't gonna do that. I had no interest in moving to Hollywood or LA or the big city to do that, and try to start that. I didn't really want it as much as I thought I did, and so I put it on the shelf for many years. I still had all the equipment, sample libraries, essentially hard drives full of real instrument recordings that I can play on a keyboard right here. I never did anything with it because I didn't have an outlet for it. And my wife always gets mad at me for it, but I'm very much a guy who, I won't have a hobby unless I can figure out how to turn that hobby into money.
Yeah.
I was brewing beer for a little while. I love beer, but I was like, yeah, this is a lot of work, and I'm drinking beer and everything, but I don't really have any interest in opening a brewery and selling it, so I'm just never going to make beer again, which is totally an unreasonable response. That's me, right? So I never did anything with music stuff until I was talking to Kevin Tumlinson about it and kind of just bitching, and same thing. And he was like, well, you ought to just write a soundtrack to my book, the Dan Kotler stuff. And I was like, well, what do you mean? It's not a movie yet. And he was like, no, just write music inspired by the book. And so I was like, oh man, that's brilliant. Okay, well, how can I make money doing it, right? And he's like, well, I'll pay you to do it. And I was like, well, yeah, you don't have to pay me, but that immediately got me thinking, people would pay me for that? That's pretty incredible, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not quite an audiobook, and it's not quite a movie, it's something else entirely. And so it's this asset that authors can use to either sell or put on streaming websites. Michael Cooper's got his streaming everywhere you can find music. But he's also selling it as a CD. It's a real nice looking case that I think Andrew Dobell did the cover design for and everything. And you can package that as a product, or you can give it away as an upsell, a value add kind of thing. And people fans seem to be really, really loving that. Now you have to be at a certain point in your author career, I think, where it makes sense financially to do it. I mean, unless it's totally just vanity, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it either way, but it's just an expensive investment. And so it typically, if you're looking at it as like a product to sell, I always tell the author that you need to have a pretty rabid large base of fans that are going to be able to support some of this, because it is such a weird thing. It's not a book, it's not a movie, it's sort of this in between. Anyway, so that's what it is. Sonata and Scribe, and we're doing a few albums right now. We've got Joe Solari he just finished a Kickstarter campaign, and I'm doing the soundtrack for that whole thing. His is fun. It's like steampunk meets 80s synthesizers, which is crazy. Really, really wild stuff, but it's really fun, and it absolutely is like an outlet for me. It's a hobby, and it's a business all in one, and that's just like kind of the perfect triumvirate of awesomeness.
Right. It'd be kind of neat if maybe you already have this or have thought of it, but to put together libraries perhaps that authors could buy for mood music. So when I'm writing a certain scene, sometimes I'll like to listen to music that sets that mood, like dramatic or whatever. It'd be kind of neat to, all right, here's my library of Nick Thacker drama music. Download, listen. So I don't know.
Yeah. So I thought of that. I didn't think of what you're talking about. That's brilliant. I'm going to do that. But I am writing what's literally called library music, with production music. So you write one of the stupid ones. I don't have my ukulele here, but little ukulele thing with like some piano plinking around, and it's like a jingle. It's the back of like every PowerPoint presentation in every cubicle dwelling. But that kind of crap sells, and you can write them in like 10 minutes. And so I've been doing that kind of thing for fun and uploading them to some of the big websites that people can download that as royalty-free music, and I get paid for it. But I've also just mastered yesterday the 10th song on a CD of my music. It's basically just instrumental rock, that kind of stuff that I listen to when I'm writing. And in the back of my mind, it was made for writers to just have in the background. Yeah. I don't like lyrics because I start paying attention to them.
Right.
Writing. And so instrumental stuff is typically what I'm writing to, and so I wanted to write a CD of that kind of stuff. But I love what you're talking about, because then instead of just downloading Pandora or Spotify and having like the Inception soundtrack or playlist, which is a bunch of songs that kind of sound like it, but they're all from different movies, and the moods are all kind of different. Yeah. This would be what you're talking about. This is all dramatic underscore, all 10 songs. And okay, we're going to an action scene. Here's the action scene, playlist or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be really neat. I'd go for it.
Love to do that.
All right. Well, that's all I have for you, Nick Thacker. Thanks so much for joining us here on Games and Writers. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.